here. So chapter 9 and chapter 7 are very similar. They're very like parallel things. The ideas there are the same. They use slightly different prakriyas or methodologies. So remember chapter 7, we talked about para and apara knowledge. Anyway, doesn't matter. I'll take you through it again. So they are very similar. And chapter 8 in between is a little different. Chapter 8 is about the gati, how after death, where do you go, and so on and so forth. So that's one of the reasons why I did this exercise last 2 times about this substance and form, because it will help us. So what I thought was we will now see what, there is Sanjay, that's great. So we have full quorum. So we'll see how the same ideas are expressed in the Gita. Because in Gita, it's not as straightforward as we are talking and discussing, but we have to kind of infer these things through Mimamsa. We have to, and I'll show you how it's done and how it's done in some of the shloks. Okay. Hey Sanjay.
Hi.
Good
I'm
evening.
not late.
No, it doesn't matter. It's totally fine. I believe you're getting ready to travel.
Yeah, I'm leaving for London Monday afternoon.
Monday
So
after.
उसके चक्कर में just to wind up things at the clinic and everything. There was a huge rush actually today
Oh,
evening.
okay.
So I got stuck there. Yeah.
You're not going to the clinic on Monday then. It's done for you.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, it's done. वही
Okay.
winding up में थोड़ा सा.
Acha. We just got started, and I was saying that
हाँ.
we are going to go to chapter 9. And I was explaining that chapter 9 and chapter 7 in the Gita are very similar. They're parallel chapters, same ideas expressed very slightly differently. And those ideas, in all of Gita chapters, there's always a Gyan portion, you could say, and a sadhana portion. So Gyan portion is, depending upon the chapter, it'll give you some knowledge. Whereas the sadhana portion is more of an exhortation to kind of do these things, be like this, do some yoga, do karam yoga, do bhakti, these kinds of things. So both of them are there. And chapter 9, the two main themes from a Gyan part, the theme is Ishwar Swarup. So what is Ishwar? And from a sadhana part, the theme is bhakti. And Gita, chapter 9 really, the way that Swamiji explained it, gives a very clear understanding of bhakti, what really bhakti is and the different levels of bhakti and so on. But we may not have time to do that this time, today, but we will do it in the next session, depending on how much time we take. But on the Gyan part, what I'll do is, because you may not remember now what was discussed in chapter 7, I will kind of refer to both chapter 7 and chapter 9 and explain how this Ishwar Swarupa is explained in each chapter. The slight differences. The name of the chapter is, I'm just going to share a slide with you. The name of the chapter is Raja Vidya Raja Guhya Yoga. I'll explain what it is in a minute. Let's share. Are you able to see my slide?
Yeah.
Okay.
Raj Vidya, yeah, Raj
Guhya. Raja Vidya, Raja Guhya. So Raja Vidya means the supreme knowledge, supreme Vidya. So Raj in Sanskrit doesn't necessarily mean royal or anything like that. Raj means bright and shining. That's Raj. So think about it like that. So this is shining knowledge, the supreme knowledge. And what is Raja Vidya? Raja Vidya is the knowledge of the self, or the knowledge of Brahman is Raja Vidya. Raj Guhya means the supreme secret. Guhya is a cave. So when you say Raj Guhya, you're trying to say what is very difficult to access, very difficult to get a hold of. It's very secret knowledge. And this is secret. It's explained. It's in the commentary, Swamiji explains why it is Rajguhya, why it is such a secret. So at many levels, it's a secret. First, it's a secret because it's not easy to get. Nowadays, you can access it much, much more easily. You can go online and you can, start listening to commentaries. But in the past, it was not that easy to get, right? You had to go to a Gurukula and you had to sit with us, study with a Swami for a very long period of time. Then also initially they won't tell you about all this. They'll take you through the rest of the Ved. They'll get you ready. Then when they feel that you are ready and prepared, you have enough knowledge of Sanskrit, you have enough knowledge of all the other things which are needed, then they will get into this. So from that perspective, it is a secret because it's hard to get to. The other reason why it's a secret is because it's hard to understand. Even if somebody explains this to you, it's not easy to grasp what is being said because it is very different from our conditioning that we've had for many, many years, many, many janmas, as they will say. So that's the second reason why it is difficult to access, because it's difficult to understand. And finally, even for those who understood, to actually truly live it, to fully understand it, not just from conceptually, but to actually apply it, is extremely tough. So there are a lot of people who can say, on the face of it, as we understand what is being said, we have the knowledge. But really, do you really, really, really have the knowledge? Do you really get it? So that requires a lot of nidhi dhyasana and so on. So that is why it's called Raj Guhya, because at many, many levels, it's a very difficult knowledge to access and understand and get a hold of. Okay. And then I'm trying to be fancy here. Then I said, we are going to look at parallelly, let's step back to chapter 7 a little bit, because it's similar topic, like I said. So you may not remember, but in chapter 7, we talked about, or the chapter talks about the twofold nature of Ishwar. So we said that Ishwar has what's called the para prakriti and the apara prakriti. Anybody remembers what this is, or can make a hazard a guess on what is apara and what is para prakriti? And what are they trying to say here by saying that Ishwar has a para prakriti and an apara prakriti?
Higher and lower form.
Yeah. What would be the higher and what would be the lower?
Brahman would be the higher form.
Right.
The human beings, would be the lower form.
Yes, the creation in put together is the lower form. So you may have always heard this thing that Ishwar is Brahma plus Maya. So apara prakriti is another word for Maya. Is for everything that you see around you is apara prakriti, the creation, human beings, this world, all the objective phenomena. It's all part of Ishwar. And it's all called apara. Apara means lower in Sanskrit. Para means higher. So this is a methodology. This is a prakriya to get us to understand the nature of Ishvara. So how do they start? They start by saying that think of Ishvara as two things, A plus B. Brahman plus the rest of the creation, or Brahman plus Maya. Of course, there is no two things, right? We know that. But when we get started, this is how it is presented. So the para prakriti, we are all the apara prakriti we are all very familiar with. Very easy to understand. When I tell you apara prakriti, it's all when we say prakriti, when we say nature. we automatically assume apara prakriti. अगर हम कहते हैं nature, so what do we assume? All the, the flowers and the plants and beautiful scenery, the mountains, this world, even the space, stars, they're all nature. Even we are part of our bodies, are all part of nature. But when we say nature, we only think apara prakriti. And what it's trying to tell you is that Ishwar has a twofold prakriti. Indeed, all of these things are Ishwar. Everything we see around is Ishwar. But Ishwar is also Brahman. There's also something called Brahman, which is sort of a unifying substance, which is also Ishwar. So Ishwar is para prakriti plus apara prakriti. Yeah. Then it goes on to say what is the description. So there are various in this chapter they were described how would you differentiate between the para prakriti and the apara prakriti. So one major distinction, and we talked about this last time too, is that the substance, which is the para prakriti, is chetna. It is the chetna principle. That means it has consciousness. Whereas what we call matter, or what we call nature, or what we call apara prakriti has no consciousness. When you think of prakriti, nature, you don't think of consciousness. Consciousness is in us, right? Trees maybe they are living beings, so you could say they have consciousness. But when you think of rocks and mountains, you don't think of consciousness. So the big difference is chetana and achetana. And sometimes we can refer to them as spirit and matter. Many people, when they think of philosophies or when they think about, spiritual philosophy in particular, they will say that there's something called the spirit, which is distinct from matter. And the spirit is this chetna principle. Again, two things, spirit, matter. Science would say, I don't believe in this. I'm not going to buy into this. There is no proof that there is anything called the paraprakriti, that there is anything called the chetana principle called the spirit. This is hogwash. Yes, apara prakriti, I can believe. I can see matter, I can understand matter, I can measure it. That I believe. But this prakriya is introducing you to something which you cannot see. It's called the chetana principle, the spirit. Okay, so far, so good. There is a spirit and there's a matter. In fact, actually, Sankhya philosophy would be very happy with this. This is where Sankhya leaves it. It says there are two major substances in life. There is Prakriti and there is spirit. But Vedanta goes further. And Vedanta then says that the Para Prakriti, which is the spirit or the Chetna principle or Brahman, whatever you want to call it, is Nirgun. It's formless. Whereas the Apara Prakriti has form. Nature has form. Anything we see in nature, anything we see around us has form. We can recognize it. But the spirit has no form. And again, the reason you should be able to understand this quickly is because we did all this in the last two sessions. We realized how, if there is a substance, it has to be formless. We went through that mental exercise, right? So all this should be what might take a long time for a new student to understand or a new person to understand should be easily accessible to you now, which is that the spirit or whatever is the underlying thing is formless. Parallel to that, we also said another thing. We said that the para prakriti is nitya. It is eternal and changeless. Eternal and changeless, same thing. It's not in space and time. Whereas the apara prakriti is ever changing. It is never still. Not for a moment is anything in nature ever still. Everything is changing all the time. In fact, we see it because it's changing. But that's a different thing altogether. Whereas something was completely still, we would never see it. We would never experience it. But for now, it's ever changing. It's anitya. And again, this also we talked about. We combined formlessness and changelessness all together by saying not in space and time. They've kind of broken it up to say it's attribute and changing. So far we have still got two things. We've got the higher and then we've got the lower. And we are digging deeper and trying to understand more and more about it. But now it goes to the end. And it says that finally, the para prakriti has an independent existence. The apara prakriti cannot exist independently. So this is where now we come to the heart of the matter, which is initially we started with, okay, I know what all that exists is apara. That's what we said here, right? All that exists is apara. Most people, the scientists would say apara is all that exists. Para, I don't even know whether it exists. It's just a thought. We are now saying that all that really exists is para. Because that's all which has independent existence. That means it exists. Apara has a dependent existence. It has a seeming existence because what seems to exist in the life, in the world around us in forms is nothing but Brahman, is nothing but the para prakriti. The actual existing stuff there, the substance, is Brahman. The forms are what seem to exist. It's like the rope and snake. When a rope is mistaken for a snake, we think that a snake exists. But what actually really exists is the rope. Now, the rope is mistaken for a snake because the rope has the form which is similar to the form of a snake. So we mistake the form and we think it's the snake, not the rope. And it exists. Whatever we see, that snake is existing. It is there when we are seeing that snake. The form belongs to the snake. It's like a snake. But the existence belongs to the rope. What is actually existing, which has been mistaken as a rope, as a snake, is actually rope. So when we say, we see the snake and the rope, we say the snake is there. The is part is right. It is there. Something exists there. What exists is where we made the mistake. We made the mistake that what exists is actually snake. It should have been rope. But the is very much there. The existence of the rope is very much there. Because the rope was there, we mistook it for a snake. If the rope was not there, we would not mistake it for a snake. So what we are saying is that the existence was there. It just happened to be the existence of the rope. In the form of a snake, it looked like a snake. So what did we mistake? We said the snake exists. The same thing with the world. Existence is there in this world. When you say the mountain exists, of course the existence is there. What is the existence of Brahman? What do we mistake it for? A mountain. Okay, that's the sort of the logical, that's the paraphrasing of the rope and snake example. And ultimately, what does it say? It says that the para prakriti independently exists as nirgun, formal, satyam or Brahman. The apara prakriti is mithya or maya. So this is how chapter 7 takes us to the nature of Ishwar. So what's the nature of Ishwar? The nature of Ishwar is para plus apara But its swarupam is Satyam. Its real substance, which is out there, is Satyam. Its roop is Mithya. Mithya is the Nama Rupa, what appears to be. Ishwar appears to be this world. But what Ishwar actually is Brahman. And because we are saying we also are essentially Brahman, Ishwar is also essentially Brahman, that's why we say Tattvamasi. Ishwar and you are the same. Okay, so we started by saying it's a twofold nature of Ishwar, and we ended by saying the Swarupam is all Satyam, the existence is only Satyam. The Apara part is just the form, the Para part is the substance. That's why we can't say 1 + 1, 2. Otherwise, people, this is a very standard question that if you say it's Advait and you say it's Para and Apara, so why isn't Para and Apara 2? There's more than one thing. No, because the thing is only one, which is Satyam. That's why it's Advait. The rest is just a form, and forms don't count when you have to count. Okay, got this one? Sanjay कहाँ गया? Probably packing for Monday. Okay, so let's now look at how chapter 9 addresses the same thing. So this was Para Apara Prakriya. Now the Prakriya that is used in chapter 9 is called the Adhyaropa Apavada. This is a very, very common Vedant Prakriya. And in this particular case, it's also called the Shrishti Prakriya, like starting from the creation. How we get to Brahman starting from the creation. How we get to Brahman starting from what we see. So here it says, let's see what is Brahman. How do we define Brahman? Or God, or Ishwar. It's talking about Ishwar. So when you start out, I think in any religion, in any spiritual philosophy, anywhere, when you start, almost the first thing which is common amongst everybody, they say, who is Ishwar? What is Ishwar? And we say Ishwar is the cause of the universe, the cause of creation. Jagat Karanam, that is Ishwar. Everybody will agree with this, even Christians, everybody else. They will say that Ishwar is the one that brought this universe to be. So we start there. This people can understand. Anybody can understand. Whoever has, there are people who don't believe in Ishwar. That's okay. They are not part of our universal set. But anybody who believes in Ishwar or God would say, yes, God is the cause of the universe. And when we say the cause of the universe, we have a proper full methodology on this. We have a full, there's deep teaching in Vedanta on how Ishwar is the cause of the universe. And not in chapter 9 so much. They don't go delve into this. In chapter 8, chapter 7, and in many other books of Vedanta texts, they go into this, what's called the Shrishti. How is Shrishti? How is the world come around? So the way Vedanta describes the world and the process of the creation of the world is through 3 phases of Srishti, Sthiti, and Laya. Srishti means the creation. From nothing, from Brahman, the creation comes. Sthiti means maintenance. Like right now we are in a Sthiti phase of the universe. It's going on. Changing, but ongoing. That's Sthiti. And the last phase, you could say, is Laya. Laya is like Pralay, is dissolution. So the universe dissolves back into Ishwar. So Ishwar is the cause because Ishwar brings forth the universe. Ishwar brings forth the universe and then dissolves it. And I think I've taken you guys through this long time ago on how this in Vedanta we talk about Srishti or creation. We say that from Brahman first was produced what's called the Tanmatras, the subtle elements. So first there was nothing. First thing to be produced was space. Not the gross element, the Tanmatra of space, the subtle space. Because everything happens in space, right? Without space, you can't really produce anything. There's nothing. So space was first to come. With space, air, fire, water, earth. After space came air, Vayu. After air came fire. After fire came water. And after the water came earth, rock, solid material, matter. Up until earth, we are all talking about very subtle material. The solid matter comes with the last phase, which is the earth. And these are all tanmatras. That means they're subtle forms of these things. Subtle forms of these things from which thoughts are made. Then the world goes through something called the Panchikriya, where, or am I calling it right? Something like that it's called. It's called the 5 elements combined together in different proportions. So 50% of space combines with, how much would it be? 12.5% each of the others. Yeah, to create gross space. Similarly, air, 50% of subtle air combines with 12.5% of each of the others to create gross air. So the things that we see, we can touch, we can feel, these are then created. And then from the subtle elements, the mind is created. From the subtle space, ear is created, the sense of hearing. From subtle water, taste is created, this way. So that's how the creation happens. What's the point of explaining all this? It's not so much that you have to understand the sequence, because, some Upanishads say that there are 5 tanmatras. That is what is standard accepted. Some Upanishads, like Chandogya, says there are only 3, subtle elements. So that's not the point. The point is that this elaborate exercise is done to show how from Ishwar or from Brahman as a starting point, all this is created. And then when everything is resolved, it gets resolved in the inverse order. First, the gross matter will go, then the subtle matter will be resolved, and finally it will all go into Ishwar back again during Pralay. So the idea is, it's introducing, so far you've only seen this gross world. That's all you thought existed. This exercise is introducing to you, one, the subtle world, again, which you can't see. And then it's introducing to you Brahman. You're still looking at it from the perspective of this gross world. It's trying to say, it's trying to say, how is this world around us created? It's not saying this world is not real or it's apparent. It's saying, how is it created? That question everybody wants to know. Then the first step is to introduce some things which you cannot see, you cannot experience. The subtle matter and Brahman. So you have in your mind, okay, there is something called Brahman. They're far away. There is something called Brahman, which at one time created this, which I'm seeing around me. Okay, I'll live with that. Having understood that, now, then it goes to the next step. And it says that this Brahman is a Sangha. It's an unattached witness. In other words, whatever happens to the world, and lots is happening in the world, all kinds of chaotic systematic changes are happening in the world all the time. New materials are being formed, explosions are happening, things are being destroyed. That while all this is happening to the world, Brahman itself, or Ishwar, let's say, sorry, I keep confusing the two terms. We're talking about Ishwar. Ishwar is a Sangha. And in chapter 9, they give the example of space. And they say, just like in space, we have space around us, supernova explosions are happening. All kinds of activity, violent activity, and other activities going on, all kinds of phenomena are being produced. But space, nothing is happening to space. Space is not being destroyed by the destruction of the matter in space. So all the matter, everything is in space, which is being destroyed and created. Space, for this moment, let's say, is neither being created nor destroyed. Some people may not agree with that today because now they feel that new space is being created all the time. That's why there's the expansion of the universe. But that's, we are talking about few thousand years ago when the analogy was quite right at that time. So it's giving the analogy of space. So now okay, this is the Jagat. The Jagat was caused by this thing called Brahman, which I don't understand. It's far away anyway. Now you know that this Brahman is also a Sangha. It's not affected. There's a little, now you can see the attention of the Prakriya is shifting from the world to Brahman. Right? It's talking about the properties of Brahman. It's bringing it more and more into light. Then it goes further. Oh, by the way, what is the essential nature of a witness? Unattached witness. Let's say you're a witness of something. When are you called a witness? Let's say you have to go to a witness stand to talk about an event that happened. Somebody stole something. When someone stole something and you're at the witness stand and you have to describe it, what is it that qualifies you to be a witness?
That you can be objective.
Yes, but before that you've been able to see that event, right? Experience is a qualification, is a prerequisite to be a witness. If you were there and you didn't see anything, you close your eyes, then you can't be a witness. Witness means I had nothing to do with the event. I did not participate in the event. I had no action in the event, but I saw the event. So you may not be a doer, but you are an experiencer. You are a seer. When we think about the Asangha witness, the consciousness or us, we are assuming that this Asangha witness is actually witnessing the world around us. That means it's an experiencer. It may not be a doer, but it's an experiencer. If it was not experiencing the world around us, we would not call it the witness. So that's the second step. Then
I'm
the
sorry,
methodology.
so that is Ishwar we are talking about right now, right? Not
Yeah,
Brahman.
Ishwar or Brahman or consciousness, the synonyms. Yeah, we are talking about Ishwar.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll go back to that. I think you're onto something.
Dheeraj, I was just thinking of another word kind of popped into my mind, which is like a silent observer. Is that
Yes,
also
silent
correct?
observer. Exactly.
Okay.
But observer means an experiencer.
Yeah.
Right. Then it goes further and says, in another shloka, it says, Ishwar is akarta abhokta. Akarta means not a doer, which is consistent with point 2. But now it's saying it's abhokta also. That means it does not experience. So when it's akarta abhokta, it cannot be a witness alone, right? So it's just taking you step by step. But still, remember, throughout this, there's a separation between the world and Ishwar. In the
Between
first case, it said Jagat Karanam. The Ishwar is the creator of the world. So you kind of think, okay, it's like a carpenter who creates a chair, right? Ishwar created this world. So there's this Ishwar who created the world. And this is what most people, by and large, would agree, right? We talked about it. So we worship that Ishwar who created this world. There's a clear separation. Then, still a separation. We say a Sangha, silent witness, observer, all of that, but still a separation. Someone is witnessing something else. Ishwar is witnessing the world. There's a subject-object relationship between the Ishwar and the world. Then you say not even a karta hai bhokta. Still there is a separation. It doesn't do anything. Of course, a karta is in direct contradiction to creation. Right? If we say he created the world and then we say he's an akarta, that's a complete contradiction. We say he's a witness and then we say he's an abhokta, complete contradiction. But just we are going step by step. Then it finally says, at the end of it all, Ishwar is the Jagat Adhishthana. That means it is the substance of creation. Jagat ka Adhishthana is the substance, what it actually is. What is the base, the foundation? What is actually there? So think always in Sanskrit, it's like this: is Adhisthana and Adhyasa. Adhisthana is what is there. Adhyasa is the superimposition on the Adhisthana. So the Adhyasa is the world, which is the superimposition. Adhisthana is the substance. Now, the separation is notional. Because it is not a seer of the world, it is not a doer of the world, creator of nothing. It's the Adhisthana of the world. It is the very substance of the world. So then how can there be separation? So we say, yes, it's the Adhisthana of the world means that everything that I see in the world, everything, its substance, its Adhisthana is Ishwar. And that includes me. I'm also in this world. My Adhisthana is also Ishwar. Now, technically, this is where we say this is the difference between Ishwar and Brahman. When we are thinking about just the substance without the form, it's just not important, just a technical thing. We call it Brahman. When we are thinking about the substance with the form together, it depends on the perspective. We call it Ishwar. Right? When we are thinking about the person sleeping and dreaming, it's like Ishwar. When we're thinking about the person in deep sleep, it's like Brahman. That's another way to think about it. It's the same thing. Because the forms, what does it mean when to say the person with the form? It means that the form is manifest as this world. What does it mean that the person without the form, Brahman without the form? That means that the form is unmanifest. It's in an unmanifest state. Doesn't mean that the Maya has gone. The form is gone. It's an unmanifest state. Maya is anadi. Maya is beginningless and endless. Similarly, so is the Brahman, beginningless. But depending upon how we look at it, we can call it Brahman or Ishwar. So can anybody tell me why this Adhyaropa Apavada? Adhyaropa, by the way, means superimposition or an error. And then Apavada means negation. So first we introduce an error and then we negate it. First we introduce division by saying there's a Jagat, there's an Ishwar, blah, blah, blah. And then we negate it. This is the negation. Jagat, Adhisthana is the negation of the error. So can anybody sort of hazard a guess as to why Vedanta works in this way? In all of Vedanta's prakriyas, they kind of follow the same general pattern.
because they want to start where we naturally are as
Exactly.
believers.
Yeah.
They want to start where we are. We are at the place where we see this world as real. And they don't want to immediately tell you, no, 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 what is real is Brahman, what you see is not real. It's like too much. It's too much of it's like drinking from a fire hose. A fire hose, it's like a huge rushing flood. So they take you slowly. That's why Vedanta is not just about the vision, but about how helping people who are interested, how to hold their hand and take them through the process. And it can't be done only through a book or from reading the Gita. It has to be done through a person, an acharya who can take you there, through a guru. So start with Jagat Karanam, Asangha, Akarta, Bhokta, and end up with Jagat Adhisthana. And the problem is people end one or the other place. Lot of people end here. Witness. And they catch on to this statement because Gita says all these things. It says it's Jagat Karanam also, it says Asangha also, it says witness also, Akarta, Bhokta also, and then it says Adhisthana also. It says all of them. It's up to the guru to make sense of this for the student. Because Gita is just like sutras, it's just mantras. It's not a text of great explanation. But someone can just say, okay, Ishwar is Asangha, sorry, this one, witness. And they can create a whole methodology around it. And we will never know any better if we don't learn it properly. So you'll see all kinds in this world. Some say Ishwar has to be reached through meditation, whatever. There are so many different things. But if you study Vedanta properly, you'll see that they are all steps in a sequence. But the ultimate message of Vedanta, the ultimate vision of Vedanta is this, Jagat Adhisthana. That means substance of the creation. So that's why I wanted to take you guys through that substance form discussion so that you are really primed for this. You can quickly then go through chapter 9. Okay. What was this? I wrote nothing there. So those are the two sort of methodologies I shared. There are many, many such prakriyas. All of them have the same things in common. They start with separation. They extend the separation. Like, for example, Drigdrishya Viveka and the others. First, they tell you that you are not this body. You are not, then it says you're not even this mind. You're not even the witness. You're not even this. They're creating more and more subtle and subtle separation. So if you end by saying, okay, I'm not the body is something else. I'm not the mind either. I'm something inside it. Your knowledge is incomplete. What you have to understand is that you are the adhisthana of the body. You and body are not separate. You and mind are not separate. But you are not the mind and the body either. And this is said beautifully in the shlokas of some of the shlokas of Gita. This particular shloka, let's take on this one, these two. And here I highlighted this. These are two next to each other. This is the fourth, number 4, 7-4, and this is 7-5. They're next to each other. And you can see the juxtaposition and see how Gita says this. So Krishna Bhagavan is saying here, Matstani sarva bhutani. That means in me are all the living beings. Sarva bhutani means all beings. Matsthani, that means in me. Sthana, in me. Mat is me. So in me are all the human beings. And then it goes on to say, Na cha matstani bhutani. Not and. Cha means and. Na cha matstani bhutani. And they are not in me either. So, when Swami Paramathananda was explaining this, he was saying, you'd start thinking that Krishna Bhagavan is confused. He said, but never, you can't think like that. So basically, this is an example also, if I might take a digression, on the importance of Shraddha. So there are some scholars, Western scholars in particular, who've read portions of the Upanishads, and they said this is childish. This cannot be. There are logically inconsistent things and they are useless. So you have to then see in your mind, if you have Shraddha, you'll say, you know, this cannot be wrong. This is the Gita. What could it mean? What possibly arrangement can there be where I can say comfortably that the world is in me, and also I can say that the world is not in me. And anybody who's gone through this exercise of Adhyaropa Apavada, which we just went through, should be able to understand this. That on the one hand, I am the substance of the world. So I can say that the world is in me. Everything is in me. But on the other hand, I can also say that I am much more than the world. I'm not just this world. So when you start with this Adhyaropa Apavada thing, you start by saying, I am not this world. So the only possible explanation for this Matstani Sarva Bhutani and Nacha Matstani Bhutani is an arrangement or a relationship where I am the Adhisthana. When the world appears in me. So it's trying to say that when you say that the world appears in me, that means from one angle, it is in me. And for another angle, it is not in me, it is not there at all. It's just an appearance. It depends on your point of view. From
So
one
there,
angle, you can say that the world appears in me, I'm the Adhisthana. From another angle, you'll say there is nothing but me. See where this is going? So this process of analysis like this is called Mimamsa. So you go through the words of the text and try to make sense and say, okay, what does it mean? And the words are written in this way in order for us to go through that Mimamsa, so that we are forced to understand it in different ways. Otherwise, it will take ages for them to write down and explain all that the Pandits and the Swamis and the Gurus are trying to explain to us. Oh, there's a Mithya, there's a Satyam, all the exercise we did, everything we did. You can't all be there in this Gita. So Gita has just a few pointers. It's up to the Acharya to take it from here. Then here,
sorry.
I was just going to let me finish and then we can.
Yeah.
Then the other one is this one also in chapter 7. It says Maya Adhyakshena. So when you say Maya Adhyakshena, you know what Adhyaksha means? Adhyaksha na Hindi ka word hai. Adhyaksha is like the boss, the controller. In some, Swamiji calls it the presiding presence. So he's trying to say that his relation in there, he's going back to, sorry, these two, Asanga and a Karta Bhokta. He's saying, I am the Adhyakshena, that means the Asanga part. That means Adhyaksh, this is also explained very much in the commentaries. They say for activity to happen, a head of government is essential. Adhyaksh is like the head of the government or head of the organization. When the head of the government or the Raja is in place, then everybody is working and they do their work. The Raja does not do any work, but Raja's presence is essential for work to be done. Because if there is no Raja and people know that the government is in an anarchy, there will be confusion all around. No work will be done. Because, you wouldn't know, none of the trust will be gone. Okay, I'm going to give him something or I'm going to sell him something. Will the guy pay me? If he doesn't pay me, can I go to a court? Will the court even be operational? Will they be fair? None of those things are in place, so the work doesn't get done. So the Raja doesn't do anything. Raja may not even know that each individual farmer down there is doing some work or what he's doing. But his very presence allows work to be done. And his absence creates chaos. So Krishna is saying, that means Ishwar, I'm like an Adhyaksh. I am not the doer or the experiencer of the work. But my presence is essential for the work to be done. So he's trying to explain how he is the creator. When he says I'm the creator, he says I'm not the person who lifted all the material and created it into this world. I am the Adhyaksh. Because I'm present, all the work got done. Prakriti, my lower nature, Apara Prakriti, Maya created all this. But Maya could create all this only because my Apara Prakriti was there. It's just an analogy. It's another way of saying Maya wouldn't be there if that was not there. So these are different terms that they use in the shlokas to kind of convey the sense. So here he said, Maya Adhyakshena. That means by my Adhyakshena. Shena means by. So Maya Adhyaksh is the basic word. That means my nature of being the Adhyaksh is what created all this. Then here he says, in me, Sarva Bhutani. So then here, this was the Yatha Akash Sthito Nityam. That means just as Akash is space, Sthito Nityam Vayuhu. Just as in the space, Vayu is always there, Sthit. Sarvatra Go Mahan. That means it's everywhere, it's all around. Just like that, I am there too. I'm everywhere, all around, and everything is Sthit in me. So they are giving you different glimpses. And now you've got to make sense of this. And you can only make sense of this properly when you have somebody to explain it and when you have a philosophical framework in which to put this. Okay, so I think that's pretty much what I wanted to say now. Any other? Kiki, you had some question. I want to shut this thing off.
Yeah, I think I was trying to relate all of this because it's easier for me to understand, to draw a parallel between me being the Ishwar of my dreams. So the last two, seemingly contradictory things, I think it was the same thing, right? I mean, it seems like there's a perfect analogy between what Krishna is saying about being Ishwar to the world and me being Ishwar of my dreams. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's not a perfect analogy, but it is a good analogy.
Where does it not match?
I mean, the fact of the matter is that the underlying stuff, the substance of you and your dream and everything is Brahman. So
No. Yeah, of course.
right. What I
terms
mean to
of
say is that in your dream analogy and all these analogies, the underlying substance we think is another roop, is you. So we have to just remember that is not the case. That the underlying substance
It's
is
an
not
analogy
another
that
substance.
stops. That stops
okay.
at.
Yeah, it stops there. Exactly. Mukta, Rajiv, anything?
No, it's fine.
Go ahead.
समझ आया मुक्ता वैसे?
Uh-huh.
I thought it'll be a little faster. I'll finish in like 30-40 minutes. Then we'll have time to chat. It just took longer. Misanticipated.
I was just gonna say, I'm just sort of enchanted by this power of superimposition. It starts in a very simplistic way with the rope and the snake, but
Yes.
now, when you look at the two slides that you showed today, right? I mean, it's like slowly taking us back to ground zero, right? And again, you brought in very nicely the the snake and the rope kind of analogy, right? Very
So
fascinating.
superimposition is at the heart of Advaita Vedanta.
Yeah.
And that's why the introduction to Brahma Sutras, which was written by Shankaracharya, its introduction is called Adhyasa Bhasha. Adhyasa means superimposition. So it's called Adhyasa Bhasha. That means it's nothing but a white paper on superimposition. And if you're interested, you should read it. I can share some stuff with you for that. It describes superimposition in great detail. What are the different kinds of error? What is essential to be there for superimposition? Why superimposition should, what that kind of thing. It really gets into detail.
Mhm.
And the reason he does this is because the biggest criticism of Advaita Vedanta, when all these other forms of Vedanta and other religions, when they attack each other all the time, right? When they attack Advaita Vedanta, they attack superimposition. They say that at the crux of all you say is that there is one Brahman and Brahman alone. And the rest of the world is explained through what? Superimposition.
Superimposition, yeah.
If there was no superimposition, then that Brahman would have had to become the world. Or there would have to be a separate world, quite distinct from Brahman. There would have been existence. So you explain the lack of existence of the world as we see it through superimposition. Because you're taking away the existence from the world and putting it all into Brahman and saying that the world is nothing but a superimposition of Brahman. So that is why for Advaita Vedanta, superimposition is the key, adhyas. So the other people can't get their heads around it. They say that is not possible. We see this world around us. You're telling us everything we see is a superimposition. And the way that Shankar then tries to explain it is he starts small. He says, okay, take a rope and a snake. You are able to understand how you can superimpose a snake on a rope. Right? You can. Now I'm telling you, think that this whole world is a snake and that rope is Brahman. You're doing just the same
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, your point. You're
Yeah.
going from a snake and a rope and taking it to be the centerpiece of your philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, a law, I guess all of Vedanta, like you said, is just that subtle difference, right? I mean, it explains everything.
Yeah, and all the methodologies and prakriyas are trying to take you there.
Yeah.
And it's a big jump in the end,
Mhm.
The initial jumps are simple. Okay, all right, you can say created the world and then, part of the world and world is part of him. All this is you can still conceptualize. But the final jump is really, to say that then those things don't exist.
Mhm.
That really the existence is Brahman. That is a huge jump.
Yeah.
And many people don't take it, and they say, fine, I can't, I just emotionally and mentally and in any other way, I can't buy into this. I can't reconcile this with my experience and my world that I live in. For me, the world around me is extremely real. My relationships are very real. My suffering and happiness is very real. Right? So that's why they say you need immense vairagya, immense objectivity to the point of almost like coldness. But
Yeah,
it's a personal thing. It's a personal choice at the end of the day.
yeah. The other thing I also found very interesting was, the transition, your own transition from, using the subject object analogy, right? You know, halfway you can kind of understand it because you're still dealing with the physical world, right? But the other two pieces where you suddenly go and say, I'm not the experiencer either, right? And then you take next step and say, I'm the substance, right?
Which
I
enables the
find those
experience.
two are actually harder to grasp unless taught by somebody, because it would have been very hard to really understand those without help from you. The top ones you can understand. I think they're
Yes.
simpler to understand because you are in that world all the time. So with genuine logic you can actually get there. But the other part of the stack, the lower part of the stack, there is still, I think for me, I'm still sort of ruminating over it to make sure I understand it properly.
Rajiv,
I
are you
agree.
talking about Brahman not being in, that there is no experience in Brahman? Is that what you're talking about?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm with you, by the way.
Yeah.
I think that's been very helpful also, Nitu, for me with you.
Yeah.
To have you say that, to actually think about that and grasp that. That it's like the world was sort of created in a way so Brahman can have an experience. Not
Experience.
that Brahman is having experience,
Yeah,
but that they can
yeah.
be experience. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, the separation of body and mind and experience, right? Or
Yeah.
witness, right? You get there. I think you slowly get there. But now, even Brahman, right, is there's no change, right? And so, it can't be the experiencer either, right? There is no space, there's no time, right? And so going there, and I think we were just about there until this form and substance business came up, right? Which is just the lowest part of the stack, that Brahman is the substance
Mhm.
that sustains, right?
Yes. It's exactly what Shankaracharya says. When he was asked to, he said, I will describe Vedanta in 2 lines. What has been said in a crore, exactly what he said. What has been said in a crore of texts, I will say in 1 line. Brahma Satyam, that means Brahma is substance. Satyam means substance.
Substance, yeah.
Jagan Mithya, that means the Jagat is a form.
Mhm.
Right? Brahma Jiva Na Apara. Me and Brahman are not separate.
Mhm.
So this is his, Shankaracharya's summarized condensation of Vedanta. Exactly what you're saying.
Mhm.
That the end point is that you are the substance. Substance is not the one who's experiencing. You need a form to experience. And a form to experience another form. I think the challenge, I feel, mentally the challenge is that at the end of the day, we can give up everything, even notionally. But we can't give up the fact that we will not experience. We can even give up, I will not do, but I will just see. But to say that I'm going to be devoid of this experience of this world is what is holding us back. And what is that? That is rag. And the ability to say, I am not interested in this world. Whether I see this world and experience this world or not makes no difference to me. That is vairagya, which comes from the knowledge that literally it makes no difference to me. And that is not, it's not a cake in the, what is it called? A walk in the park.
Yeah.
Walk.
One thing, like in this explanation that we had today, it said that Brahman is not the experiencer, right?
Yeah.
But we experience because we are conscious, because of the consciousness
Which
that
is
is
Brahman.
there in
Yes.
us.
Yes.
That is why we experience.
Yes.
Otherwise, we wouldn't experience anything.
Absolutely. So Brahman enables experience.
Yeah.
Consciousness enables experience. And the analogy we gave last time was light. We are the light. We are neither the person who's seeing. Light is essential for seeing. When you are seeing something, you can't see something without light. But you don't see light. Actually, you see only light. All that you see is light. All that you're seeing is the light which is entering your eyes. Everything else you're creating from there. Right? What is the thing which is contacting with light? But in any case, that is a different issue. Similarly, they say all that you experience is Brahman, right? Just like light. But I digressed. What I was saying was light is essential to see. But it's not light that we are interested in seeing. Our interest is in seeing the objects. We use the light to see the objects. So the seer is not the light. That which is seen is not the light. Light is the one that enables this sight or experience to take place. We are the light. Our essential, well, our essential nature, which is Brahman. Brahman is the light. It's the consciousness. You need consciousness to experience. And that consciousness, we think it's in me. I am conscious, that's why I experience. No. Consciousness is more like the light. It's all around us, it's everywhere. For us to experience the object, we need consciousness in the object too. It's like consciousness underlies the experiencer and the experienced both.
I get it now. Right.
Okay. I think I got lost a little bit in the process.
No, I suddenly came back to me.
Okay,
My
good.
question, I got the answer from
Okay.
where you were coming, what you were saying, I just got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So meet in 2 weeks.
Yep.
All right, guys.
I mean, can I just say one last
Yeah,
thing?
say.
Which is that it seems like, we are almost saying that Brahman is more like going back to the Mandukya analogy, is being like in deep sleep where there is nothing to experience. So that doesn't seem very inviting.
No, I think that, see, again, you're making a distinction between Brahman is this and not this. See, that's what happens. We're constantly at that, as Rajiv says, the top end of the stack. We have to get to the bottom end of the stack. And the real bottom end of the stack is that the Brahman is the Adhisthana. You remember those 4 things?
Yeah.
Brahman is the Adhisthana of everything. Everything you experience, everything you see is very much there, and it's part of you. And it's Brahman. It's not going away anywhere. It's not like in order to realize Brahman, everything goes away. No.
No.
All the philosophy is saying is, all Vedanta is saying is that everything that you experience is fine. You just think of it as distinct. You think of it as separate from you, separate from each other. You think of it as an existing in itself. That's not true. It is actually not different from each other. It is just a superimposition. It doesn't make it any less of an experience. It's still very much the same experience. It's just telling you that it's a superimposition on an underlying substance called Brahman, which you are also the underlying substance. So you can't say, I am not the body, but I am the Brahman.
I know. I keep falling into that trap, because for many, many years with Carol, there was such a distinct separation that I fall into that trap all the time, of that separation of the top of the stack. Yeah.
Because you were probably at the, in the prakriyas are all there, but the not followed, you didn't get to the end of it for one reason
Just
or
to the
the other, whatever the
nitty-gritty,
reason
not
was.
to the exactly.
Right. So that's why remember this chapter 9. It's those 4 points are very important. The first is Jagat Karana. The second is the witness. The third is Akarta Abhokta. And the fourth is Adhisthana. Okay? Just remember these 4, because you are going to get confused and unhappy if you get stuck at 1 and 2. 1 and 2 and 3 are just transitory.
Yeah.
Right? You have to ground yourself on number 4, which is that everything is there and the Adhisthana of everything is Brahman. That is all the philosophy is saying. Nothing more. And that should make you happy, not uncomfortable or sad.
Right.
It will make you accept everything. It will make you accept good and bad things, all the experiences, accept people around you, accept the world, live more engagedly in the world. If all this is not happening, that means that you have not understood yet the philosophy properly. If you have doubts, if you have, you suddenly start feeling, oh, no, those kinds of things.
No, I get it. It just takes
Yeah, so that is why I was repeating it.
True.
Just so that we can, and that's why those 4 points, I put it on the slide also, because I thought it was important to kind of lay them out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Adhisthana.
How was your
I thought Carol
experience?
always kept saying Adhisthana, Adhisthana, Adhisthana.
Oh
That's
no, initially we started out with subject, uh, it was just for many years initially, and it
okay.
was always
That's okay.
new
Yeah.
things. So yeah. Anyway, sorry,
So you said
Mukta.
something?
I was saying, Nidhi, how was your experience with
Oh yeah.
attending that Sarvyanandaji's
Oh,
class?
yeah, it was actually not a class. He has every so often he has these sessions called Ask Swami. And so
Uh-huh.
I did get to ask a question. And I think that
So
my
that was online or you physically
Oh
attended?
no, in person. In person.
In person. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So there is a Vedanta Society of New York in
Yeah,
Manhattan.
yeah.
And so yeah, I just went there. Yeah. It was
Okay.
good because and mine had to do more uh with how we were just talking right now about intellectually you almost have to be so objective. And I think that I had been going through some stuff where I wanted more from my heart than my head. And so I was asking about a relationship with Ishvara, that I always had trouble with it because I can't, do the anthropomorphic Ishwar but he answered so nicely, and I think it really made sense to me because I figured like if I can have relationships with a guru or people I love or trusted friends, I can think of Ishwar as a trusted friend also. I always used to think Ishwar is everything good and bad. Why do I always have to think good? But I can think good because I, yeah, it kind of it helped me sort of just emotionally, to
Great.
have a relationship. So yeah, it was very nice. He's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
See you.
Bye-bye.